Hi, everyone, and welcome to the As I Amber podcast. I'm Amber, and I love to talk about music, travel, society, and pop culture. On today's episode is fitting with the season. Me and a special guest, Solomon Hillfleet, will be discussing ghosting.
Hey, how are you doing today, Amber?
I'm
Thank you
doing
for
good.
having me.
Oh, no
this
problem.
is a near and dear to my heart topic, so I can't wait to have this.
Yes, so it's October and all the scary movies are on television, and the subject that we're talking about ghosting is a millennial term, but ghosting is like social distancing in a way.
It is.
It's a different name for it, but ghosting, according to Urban Dictionary and just millennial phrases, ghosting is when someone in a relationship, in a friendship, or business endeavor just stops communicating with you for no reason. There's no warning, there's no anything. It's just stop, no recording, no one's talking to you anymore. No one is texting you anymore. You probably blocked on social media if you have it. And is that your definition of ghosting? Do you think that's a good definition?
Yeah, that's a pretty good definition of ghosting, and we got a lot of different terms for variations of it now. I've heard of, but yeah, ghosting is basically I'm with you one moment and then I leave you the next.
Right.
So, I've heard of another. I think someone else mentioned another form that was similar, where that person disappears and then they reappear, and it was like another variation of it. But
orbiting.
Yeah, it was something like that.
I'm like, people are just making up stuff now, but
they are. They're just getting really good with the terms.
Yeah. So I originally thought about ghosting because we are millennials, and so I want to define millennial because everybody's saying they're a millennial, and I'm like, no, you're not. Millennial,
please define.
A millennial is someone that is aged 24 to 39. So if you don't fall into the age bracket of being 24 to 39, you are not a millennial. If you are 24 and under, you are considered Gen Z. And the reason why I make this differentiation is because different generations communicate differently. Whether our parents, they talk to one another on the phone, we have all these different forms of communication, whether it be FaceTime, texting, calling, video chat, Zooming, all these different forms of communication. But what are we really communicating? Or lack of communicating?
and I think that's the really big thing. It's the way we're communicating. Generationally, we grew up with talking to people on the phone, writing letters, and now that we have social and all these other forms, we're communicating, but it's just in a much different way. And I wanted to say the other term is haunting. Ghosting and haunting.
Ooh. Yeah, go more into that. What is haunting?
So apparently, and I'm going to have to tell myself, I did go to Cosmo to get the definition.
Okay.
But Cosmo basically said haunting is like when a person that you previously were dealing with not necessarily just lurks your page, but they send you that occasional future text and just said they wanted to check in on you. That's all.
Oh, gotcha. So the reason why I wanted to bring this topic up is not only because it's Halloween season, but ghosting is like a year-round thing, especially when it comes to millennial dating and relationships. I don't want to sound like that old person that says, back in my day, but times have changed and the way people communicate has changed, like you just said. So if you all may or may not know, Saul and I are huge fans of Issa Rae's show Insecure.
Very big.
And on a particular episode, the main character, Issa, was dating, or she was having a situationship, or she was talking to a guy named Nathan. Everything was going great. They're hanging out. They're talking every other day. They're going on dates, just getting to know one another. And then one day, he just doesn't talk to her anymore. He doesn't communicate. He just disappears like a vanishing act. And Issa is checking his social media pages. She's like, is he okay? Is he alive? Like, what's going on? And eventually, I don't want to spoil the episode or anything for you, for those who haven't watched it. Spoiler alert. Or if you don't care, this character was going through some personal issues. And I don't think they had the mental or emotional capacity to communicate that, hey, I'm going through this right now. So instead of using their words like an adult, they just disappeared. They ghosted her. And she was devastated because she was going through a lot. But the fact is that I'm trying to get at is that ghosting, there's usually not a red flag or like, girl, you didn't know he wasn't that into you. Not all the time. Some people may not have the social capacity or emotional capacity to realize that someone doesn't like them like that. So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about people that communicate with you on a regular basis and then it just stops.
Ooh, when you were given that, that definition, it just triggered some old memories in me. Because, I've been there, I think at some point everyone's going to be confronted with that when you don't really know or want to tell someone that you're no longer interested, and you just say, it's just easier not to say anything at all sometimes.
Right. And I was actually listening to this podcast called Therapy for Black Girls, which is really an intriguing and interesting show. It's with a licensed clinical psychiatrist, and she just talks about different issues that more particular Black millennial women go through. And she said, she even mentioned this episode of Insecure, and it just so happened to be a coincidence that was on my mind. But she said she didn't realize that ghosting was like prevalent until she got a lot of clients coming to her, telling her what was going on in their lives. And I just found that really interesting, especially with our generation and online dating. I think we have so many options, whether it's swipe left, swipe right, that people are forgetting that there are people behind these screens and behind these keyboards.
And, I think people are more fragile because of that, and I think that's the part, what you're saying, that's the part that makes it the most dangerous is we're removing people from it and we're just looking at pictures or a conversation. And, for me, when I actually really ghosted someone, and kind of looked back on it and I saw how they, possibly could have took it. I can imagine what that does to someone, just what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? And then on the other end, I've been on the receiving end of ghosting too, so I know how that is too.
Right. And I think what happens is that society or media can kind of romanticize closure. And in reality, you're not going to always get closure about why you weren't selected or why this person didn't call you back or why y'all didn't have that connection or whatnot. And I think that's what the weird part or scary part about ghosting is. Someone literally goes ghost.
I think the other side of that too, like I'll try to assume I'll start with why I think dudes do it, then I'll talk about women. I think with a lot of dudes, it's one of those things, where you don't want to go through the process of being the bad guy again. The other catch of it that I've learned at the end of dating was just, it's just better to be direct and blunt, and just deal with what it's going to be then. Sometimes you really like a person or the image of that person and you get to know them like, ooh, no. But you gassed it up too far. So you it's harder to say, you know what, I thought I liked you, but this isn't for me. So sometimes it's easier just to phase out. But I'll say, I think with a lot of women, I think they ghost, for a lot of reasons out of fear. They don't want to reject a guy and face the wrath of what could happen. And so I kind of understand it in that sense.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. Now, I know I don't speak for all women because everybody has their own life experiences and perspectives, but I will say that from my peer group or the people that I was around in college or whatnot, ghosting seems to come up when someone just doesn't know how to confront something. It could be a communication issue for some women and some men, or it could be that they just really don't care and they're selfish.
That's true. So, I mean, I guess the question I want to ask, maybe not with you, but with your friends, if you can chime in with your own personal experience, you can, but have you ever ghosted someone or knew somebody that ghosted someone? And if so, what was your reason or their reason behind doing it?
Okay, so yes, I have ghosted, and yes, I have been a ghostee.
Shame.
So I ghosted someone on a dating app because I kept on reaching out, we were communicating back and forth, but their answers were just very one word and dry. So it was like, I'm not going to even try anymore. They seem not to, like they don't want to be bothered. So why bother? So I kind of ghosted them, if you consider that ghosting. But I'm a type of person where, you probably know or don't know, I communicate. Maybe I over communicate. So if something's bothering me or someone upset me or did something, I usually try to communicate with them like, hey, why is it that blah, 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 or, when you did this, or when I said this, or that hurt my feelings, or I try to talk about it. But I realize not everyone has the emotional capacity to have a conversation. So it's just easier to just stop texting or talking to them.
I will say this. I'll say that, like, I had a really particular experience with ghosting someone where I really just saw the level of messed up it was. But, I think my reason behind it was I realized I had really, put out an energy that I liked that person, and then just realized, after beyond conversations, I was like, this really is this is not what I thought it was. And I don't know how to walk it back. And, I'm usually a person that's pretty good at communicating, but I'm also a person who's good for, I guess, trying to spare people's feelings. And I think that was the thing where I got in a situation where, like, I can't really do this and spare this person feeling. I didn't want to be the bad guy. So I was just like, the passive-aggressive way is just to stop talking.
Wow, that's deep. But it's interesting because, like you said, everyone's communication style is different, and I would recommend for people to learn their friends or their romantic interest love language. If you haven't heard of it, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, and how people react or how they receive love or communicate differently. And I think that would eliminate so much drama just by having a conversation. But with ghosting, it eliminates that. And I think we focus so much as a society on romantic relationships, but ghosting happens in friendships and in business sometimes.
And I think the big thing to say in those situations is, I will say this, I think there are relationships where, like you were saying, you're not going to get closure, and it's not up to you to seek closure. I've had relationships where I couldn't get the closure I really wanted, but I think the thing it showed me is that you're not always going to get it, and some explanations don't require you to explain why there's not a connection.
Right.
I've went out on dates with women, and we both knew that it wasn't gonna work, and it didn't have to say, hey, I just want you to know this has been a great time. You just kind of knew, like, we're not gonna talk after this, but that's okay.
Yeah, and even on the swipe left, swipe right, whatever dating apps or whatnot, I had a guy send me a message that said something like, oh, you seem like a nice person, but I just not that into you. And I was like actually happy that he sent something instead of just not responding anymore.
I can always respect that honesty, and I think that's the big thing. Like I said, that's the big thing that comes from hindsight. Like, one of the things I was saying in my book was a lot of pain could have been avoided and could be avoided by both sides if we're just very honest. If we're as honest, like, I tell people, if you were as honest about, with other people as you were with the waiter when they bring your food, then we would be okay. Because people will not hesitate to say, hey, this is not what I want, this is not it. But when it comes to people, we're like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
Around it. Yeah.
That's it.
That's interesting. And then I thought about it from a business perspective. Whether you've gone on a job interview or you ask someone how much something costs when it comes to a business endeavor, or, just kind of a behind the scenes deal. Some people will leave people on red, so to speak, or not respond back.
To me, honestly, being left on red is more disrespectful than ghosting me. But they're the same. I can think of one time when I just, when a girl ghosted me, and I kind of was just like, would I rather you, she left it on red, and I was like, it's just something about the level of disrespect of leaving it on red. Saying, address it. It brings out an interesting emotion in me. I can't put my finger on it.
I think it's just the disrespect, like, as a human being, like the acknowledgement. if I don't know if it's just me, but if you send someone a text message and they got it, and not that they were busy or anything, they just didn't feel like responding. They have that's their prerogative, but I just don't think that is nice.
It's not, but that's our generation, and I don't know Gen Z because I'm not a part of Gen Z. I can't say I know, but we just can tend to poke fun on, someone had a funny tweet that I think of. They said, Gen Z will do some really bold things, but be afraid to have a conversation. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much it. They will take things to the ends of the earth. They'll break property. They'll protest. And then you'll say, all right, have a conversation with somebody in public. And they're like, oh, no.
Yeah, keyboard thugging. Like,
oh my God.
Everybody can type an essay up and, hashtags and retweets. But when it comes to saying something face to face or over the phone, it's like foreign.
And I think that's starting to become an issue with our generation as well, though, too, because, and I think especially, I want to get your thoughts on it. How does dating during COVID look? Like, does ghosting increase because of that? I'm not in the game anymore, so I don't know, but I'm just curious.
Honestly, this past almost a year now, I have not even been trying to seriously date because of COVID. I've been so focused on business and just trying to get my life together. So from what I see on the dating apps that I have been on or go on, or just knowing people in person, a lot of people are doing a lot of video chatting. And that brings up a weird element to, you're in the privacy of your home or wherever you live or wherever, to talk to a stranger. It's a weird computer love. It's strange to me. And I didn't feel comfortable doing so with someone I had never met in person, with shows like Catfish, with so many people getting scammed on the internet and thinking they're talking to someone who is really not who they say they are. I mean, people get catfished in real life, but it's more prevalent, with digital dating or whatnot. So I can't really answer that. I just have avoided it because I'm like, how are you going to go on a date? Are you going to wear a mask? Are you going to socially distance? How do you know who they've been around?
And see, I think that's the biggest thing. And I just wonder, how do you make a connection? How do you safely make a connection and know that this person is worth risking COVID for? Just to be black and white, all right, this date, for my women that are foodies or go on dates just to get their meal, is this meal possibly worth infection? To brothers that, live off of women that live in their homes, is this worth possibly catching COVID over to have a place to stay?
Oh my God. not that. Oh the gosh. It's quite interesting. I've seen creative ways. I think there was it was on BuzzFeed or something. This guy, he created a bubble, a literal bubble boy. And he had a drone, and he asked one of his apartment neighbors, or she lived in the next building, and he could see her from the roof. Sounds very stalkerish, but he would always see her every time he went somewhere or something from a distance. So he got his drone and he sent her a message. He got really creative, and they're dating now. So he found a way to date during COVID. So it's no excuse. Wow. He made a way because he really liked this girl, and she responded back to him, and they would go on walks socially distanced while he was in his little clear bubble thingy.
Wow.
It was really funny, but they've made it work. So I guess if someone is really, really into you, or if they have effort, it could work for some people.
I imagine how easy it will be to ghost in this time.
Right, I don't have to talk to you. I don't know you. What is this?
Wow. Because at least if you, and because it's easy too. It's no attachment.
Mm-hmm.
You could just have not responded in enough time and just be you know what? Let me just not respond.
On to the next.
I'll say a funny experience I had. I went on a date with a girl. I wrote about it in the book. Went on a date with a girl, and prior to us meeting up, she had all this energy for meeting me. I was I don't know you, so I'm not sure. And then when I met her, I was oh, okay, yeah, she's kind of cute. She's kind of cool, da-da-da. And I got a little too happy, and I was like, yeah, I think I really I'm enjoying this date. I think I really like you. And I saw that little glint in her eye, like, oh no. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, I should have said that, but we'll see. So the next day comes, and I text her the next day because I knew better than text her that evening. I text her the next day, and I was just like, yeah, enjoyed myself. And I saw the 3 ... stop. I was like, oh, exactly. We both said, oh, at the same time. And I was like, oh, she's going to ghost me. Oh, man. And I was just like, somebody's going to have to get this energy. Somebody's going to have to pay for this, not me.
Wow. I do think that, like you said, you saw the bubbles come up on your phone. So for people who don't have iPhone, which I don't know who doesn't in this day and age, no shade, but shade.
Don't pick that fight. Don't pick that fight.
But if you have an iPhone, you can turn on a certain notification that lets you know your text message was sent and that person opened it. Now, to avoid drama in your life, you could turn that setting off, but it's quite interesting, like you said, when someone got your message and they just don't feel like talking to you.
Yep.
So and I have to, this ghosting subject makes you realize, okay, I know the world does not revolve around me. People have lives. People are going through a pandemic right now. People have jobs. People have illnesses. People have so much going on. So I don't expect constant communication like that throughout the day, especially if you're a working adult. Like, you don't have time for that. However, the common courtesy could be something instead of nothing.
And I think that's the big thing. Just communicate with people. Let them know how you feel. If you decide to stop talking to them, as hard as it is, don't follow them. Don't follow them. If you say that this is not for you, don't follow them. Don't make things more confusing. And I think that's just the big thing. And I think if this year hasn't shown us anything, it's just mean what you say what you mean.
That is so true. That is super true. Especially, like you said, mean what you say what you mean and all that. I have literally seen people go on social media and post things like hashtag mental health or, hashtag this. But when it comes to real life situations, they're not what they post to be, which is another episode of my podcast that I had. So it's kind of like, are you practicing what you post? Like, we can post quotes and memes and, appear a certain way online, but let's how are you off the internet? Like, how are you off the app? And
I think that's the big thing too. We're in a time where, people say mental health, and so I'll say this. On one hand, if you feel like ghosting this person is essential for your mental health, I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
But if maybe that's how it comes off to you, if that works for you, that's okay. But I think another big part of it is we can't say, be respectful of people's mental health and their boundaries and not put people through undue stress. When you do stuff like ghosting people go through a lot of real issues, especially when you're taking it to a real point of no return. You made this person believe that you feel the exact same way. That's just unfair.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I immediately thought of a former friend of mine. If for those who don't know, Solomon and I went to the same college, but we happened to have not ran into each other or knew each other at the times that we were there. So it's really strange. So this year I was looking forward to homecoming. Just like, just hang out and see people that I hadn't seen, but COVID happened. So those plans went out the window. So long story short, I met this particular former friend like at work or something, and we were cool. We hung out all the time, and I invited her to my school's homecoming. She went, we had a good time or whatever. And one day, out of the blue, I realized that she had blocked me on social media.
Oh no.
Right.
What happened?
And I'm like, we hadn't had a disagreement. We hadn't had an argument. Like, this is a friend, okay? So I was like, text her, and I called her. No response. No response. And I just had to give it to God, I guess, because I was like, I don't know what I did. What, did I say something to her? Like, I really analyzed myself and everything, and I even talked to a counselor about this. This is how real this is. And
Wow.
I was a professional person told me, "Oh, sweetheart, don't worry about that. It is not, it's good to have self-reflection, but sometimes it really isn't you. It's that other person."
I'm
And
really glad you said that.
whatever they're going through in that moment, in that time, and whether they were going through something personal, whether they were jealous, whether that happens a lot sometimes when people hang out with you in other elements and they see how you're loved or how you're liked, and they look at their life and start making comparisons, that can sometimes make people shut down.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, dude, because that's really been a lesson I've been working on mastering this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it a lot to myself, but I don't always follow it. But I always have to say, look, how people feel about you or how you are is a reflection of where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and do not allow other people's feelings or personal feelings to cloud how you are. Like sometimes, I have strong opinions, I say
Mm-hmm.
things, and I have strong ways of looking at life. And I'm like, man, is this person upset or is this person mad? And what I've often found is people genuinely, in a lot of cases, are not worried about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, that's also a reflection of where they are. If they're a person who's really done a lot of self-work, they'll say Solomon is going through some personal things in his life and he's choosing to vent those. This has nothing to do with me.
Wow, that is.
You know?
And you know what the funny thing is? I've had like former friends in my life come back, like a ghost, pop-up ghost,
Oh yeah.
kind of say, and apologize for how they treated me, or ask for forgiveness. And it's no harsh feelings anymore, but I handle certain people from a long handle spoon, so to speak. Or I don't have to talk to you or deal with you, but okay, I forgive you, keep it moving.
No, I understand. I mean, I think that's the only way to be. You can forgive people for what they did, but that you shouldn't put yourself in a position to be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I realize how people handle things is a reflection of them. There are some people, they communicate when they're feeling frustrated. There are some people, they run when they're frustrated. And there's some people that they just go very inside. So, as you get older, I think if we could just give people grace, if we can give people grace, that doesn't mean we allow ourselves to be made a fool of, but just give people grace.
Yeah, I think grace and maturity and age and evolution. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago, and you change every other, decade, every 5 years or whatnot, depending on what season of life you're in. So I try to take those things into consideration too.
And I think that's the big thing, just to keep it in consideration. But at the same time, certain things you don't tolerate. If a person ghosted you, there's no reason why you should answer that. I'm not gonna say you shouldn't answer that, but you shouldn't allow that person
to continually
to
mistreat you.
Mm-mm.
And think of it, if someone ghosted you, this is just for all the listeners and anybody who's listening right now, I feel like it. I'm not a professional, so you can take my opinion whatever you want with it. But to me, look at it as you dodged a bullet. If someone just stopped talking to you and stopped communicating with you, sometimes that might be a blessing in disguise. Like,
A lot of times it is. We just don't.
we don't realize it in the moment.
Exactly. So, I guess the big thing I would say is just, don't ghost people. Unless if it's a situation like your health or you're in danger, and it's safer just to stay away, yeah, of course. But for the most part, communicate with people and don't haunt people's pages. Once you're done dealing with somebody, to the people that just look at your post, screenshot it, don't like anything, and do a lot of work to hide themselves. I don't know how y'all live with yourselves doing that.
Right, that just seems exhausting. Like, are you a stalker or a fan? Like, what's
Both.
going on?
Both.
Like, how can you look at someone's social media all day, every day, and what's the point of you even? Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
It is. But dating just shows you a lot about yourself. That's all I'll say. Dating shows you a lot about yourself, and once you identify things that are negative habits of yours, like once I realized I was having an issue being direct with people, I had to work on it. And it's the same.
Wow. Speaking of another topic, you have Jaded Gems. So, for those of us who may not be familiar with it, Solomon Hillfleet is an author as well as a little bit of an actor, so to speak. Can you speak more on that?
Oh man, no, but so I wrote the book Jaded Gems about a year ago, October 19th. And what I was doing this year, we were on break, and I was like, it would be nice if people saw some visuals. And so I reached out to another Fort Valley alum, and they helped shoot it. And I said, well, I know what I wrote about. Maybe I should just jump in there and do it. And I got the opportunity to do that. So it was a good opportunity. I got to simulate a fictional therapy session that I had. But I did have to have therapy afterwards.
Hey, nothing's wrong with that.
Yes, therapy is great. And I'm going through therapy now, so it's all good.
I think that, so Jaded Gems is like a book as well as a possible series, is it? Or was that just a one-time thing?
So when I originally had it envisioned, it was, Jaded Gems was going to be one book. But I'm currently working on like another installation of it. And, the thought of it is Jaded Gems is, look, in life, you learn some valuable lessons, but sometimes it comes as a result of like bad or traumatic things happening. So you sometimes feel jaded, but it was good for you. So that's why I named it Jaded Gems. But yeah, this there'll be another installation, but I just like the term, and so I said, let's try to build a brand about it. So I did, Jaded Gems, the book. I did an audio book. I did a short film, and now I'm trying to, give people some pieces of merchandise that they can, get a beanie or a hoodie or a sweater or something they can wear.
So where can people purchase or, donate for Jaded Gems, the series or whatnot?
I appreciate that. So, with my Jaded Gem merchandise, if you go to my Instagram on Solomon Hillfleet, in my bio, I have a Shopify, Wrights World, Wrights, WRGHTS, dash World, WORLD, at myshopify.com. So you can find it at my social media, Solomon Hillfleet on Instagram and Twitter. And that's where you'll be able to find it. As far as the film, the film is out. You can watch it on my Instagram as well. You can watch it on Vimeo, and so it's out there. You can follow. I'm sorry. You can find the book as well on Amazon. Jaded Gems by Solomon Hillfleet.
Awesome. So this has been a great episode, just getting a different perspective on ghosting. So, yeah.
It has. And I appreciate you inviting me on. I always love our talks. Just know, I want to say this last thing. Insecure was robbed, and we're going to have to talk about that later.
Oh, yeah, from the award season. Yeah,
yes.
that is interesting. But you know what I've come to realize? Just like ghosting, everyone's maturity and emotional capacity can't handle the show.
That was the sermon for the day.
Yeah, I think Issa, we're Issa fans, so we're biased. But Issa Rae has done so much, starting from YouTube to being on HBO to Saturday Night Live. She's done so much. So, yeah. This has been a great episode. Hey, you all, don't forget to continue to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at AsIamber, and leave some comments below. Have you been ghosted? Let me know.
Also, make sure you guys, when you're following Amber's podcast, make sure you leave reviews and share with your friends. As a creator, that helps.
Thank you so much. Shout out to you. Thank you. All right, y'all. Have a good day, and don't forget, Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Bye. Bye.